and conductors. Conductors are metal rod and they are all graphite, and those are the ones which are used as electrodes. They are metal rod or graphite, which allows electric current to pass through. Now, the difference, they are all conductors. So this one, the particles responsible for conductivity are ions. Ions. In electrolyte, ions are responsible for carrying electric current. But in conductors, they are delocalized electrons. The particles responsible are electrons, which are negatively charged. And we looked at electrons as the flow of electrons is what we call electricity. Then we looked at conductivity. We looked at these electrolytes conducts electric current and are decomposed. Whereas this one conducts electric current but remains in the same state. Electrolytes, when conducts electric current, they are decomposed at electrodes. Whereas conductors, when they conduct electric current, they are decomposed. No, they remain in the same state. They remain in the same state. Then, this conducts electricity in aqueous or molten state. But this one conducts electricity in solid state or molten state, or at room temperature. Conducts electricity in solid state or molten state. Conducts electricity in solid state or molten state. And those are one of the differences between those two. One, the particles responsible for conductivity are electrons, and another one are ions. It conducts electricity and is decomposed. The other one remains in the same state, and this one in aqueous state, whereas this one in solid state. So let's look at discharge, the factors which affect the discharge of ions. You see, in poly electrolyte, we have more than 2 ions. Take an example. If we have sodium hydroxide. If we have sodium hydroxide and we dissolve it in water, we shall form sodium ions plus hydroxyl ions. But water also partially ionizes when electric currents pass through. It does not remain 100%. It partially ionizes because it is a weak electrolyte to form hydrogen ions plus hydroxyl ions. Now we have 3 ions. We have 3 ions. Now, when electric current is passed through, we have this one, we have the anode, we have the cathode. At the anode, it is only hydroxyl ions which will be discharged. It is only hydroxyl ions which will be discharged, which will move. It is the only negatively charged ion, therefore we move to the anode. When it moves to the anode, it moves to the anode, and after reaching the anode, the hydroxyl ions loses its electron to form hydroxyl molecule plus an electron, hydroxyl molecule. This hydroxyl molecule, as you are writing, please write, these hydroxyl molecules are unstable. Therefore, the hydroxyl molecule combine in pairs to form water and oxygen atom. The hydroxyl molecules combine to form water and oxygen atom. The oxygen atom does not exist at room temperature. So what happens? The oxygen atom combine in pairs to form oxygen gas, which is the major product at the anode. It is the major product at the anode. It is the major product at the anode. And in this case, that means during electrolysis of sodium hydroxide, oxygen is produced at the anode. Oxygen is produced at the anode. That is, and our observation is bubbles of colorless gas. Bubbles of colorless gas during the electrolysis of sodium hydroxide. But you can write the overall equation of all of this one. If you are asked to write one equation, you add all of this one, you get hydroxyl, because this one is not a product, this is not product. So the product is water and oxygen plus an electron. Because this one will cancel with this one is not a product. So the product is water and oxygen. That is a single equation which you can get at the anode. Which you can get at the anode. But you need to balance. You need to balance. And when you are balancing, we said you begin from where you have odd. Because this is even, this is odd. So you have to make sure that all oxygen on one side attains odd even value. And by doing so, you have increased the hydrogen atoms, and there are 4. Yet here it is 1, so we put here 4. But by putting here 4, you have affected the charge. How many electrons? The number of electrons, there are 4, so we put here 4. And that is the balance equation for to show the product formed, or the equation that took place at the anode. The equation that took place at the anode is 4 moles of hydroxyl decomposed to form 2 moles of oxygen, of water, and 1 mole of oxygen. And observation, we shall see bubbles of colorless gas. Colorless gas. We shall see bubbles of colorless gas. When you electrolyze that one, we see bubbles of colorless gas. Now, after seeing bubbles of colorless gas, we can also look at, remember the pH. We can look at the pH of a solution. Now, when hydroxyl ions are discharged, it means from this equation of water, the equilibrium of water is disturbed. That means the water is no longer balancing. So what happens is the more water ionizes, producing more hydrogen ions. More water ionizes, producing more hydrogen ions, and that decreases the pH on the anode. So the pH at the anode decreases due to discharge of hydroxyl ions. Now, when it comes to the cathode, now that's where we have to be careful when it comes to the cathode. At the cathode, we have now sodium ions and hydrogen ions. That is now where the selective discharge of ions comes in. That is where selective discharge of ions comes in. Which of the 2 ions will be discharged first? And in this case, we have to consider the factors. We have to consider the factors, and the first factor is iron higher in electrochemical cell. The ions higher in electrochemical cell. So in other words, position, we consider position of iron in electrochemical cell. That is one of the factors, assuming other factors are constant. In dilute solution, and that one works in dilute solution. When other factors are constant. When the solution is dilute, other factors are constant. Therefore, one of the factors which determines the selective discharge of iron is the position of iron in electrochemical seal. And these ions are, we have the highest is potassium at this level, then we have calcium ion, we have sodium ion, we have magnesium ion, we have aluminium ion, we have zinc ion, we have iron 2 ion, we have lead 2 ion, we have hydrogen ion, we have copper ion, etc. That is what we call, and selective, it decreases the standard electrode potential. If you go in that one, the standard electrode potential decreases. The energy required to discharge one of the ion decreases. Energy required decreases. Energy required decreases. And the less the energy required to discharge the ion, the more preferable it will be discharged. When an ion requires more energy to be discharged, then it will not. Instead, the ion which requires less energy will be discharged. And this is for cations. Then for anions, we have sulfate as the highest, we have nitrate, we have chloride, we have bromide, we have iodide, and we have hydroxyl. So in this case, when all of these ions are present in solution, all of these ions, assume they are present in solution, and you pass electric current, one the ion which will be discharged is copper 2 ions. The rest will remain in solution, because copper 2 ions requires less energy to be discharged. Therefore, it will be preferably discharged compared to others. Now, when you have all of these ions, sulfate, nitrate, chloride in dilute form, we are meaning dilute form. I emphasize, in most cases, the position of iron in electrochemical cells only works when we are dealing with dilute solution. So the hydroxyl ion will be preferably discharged. And when it is discharged, it gives oxygen. So members, whenever hydroxyl ion has been discharged, then the product at the anode will be oxygen. Now, my question is, now that I have given you that overview, which of the two ions, sodium and hydrogen, this is increased discharge, increase discharge. That means if you have potassium and iron, which of the two will be discharged? Iron 2 will be discharged in preference to potassium because it is lower in electrochemical cells, therefore it requires less energy to be discharged. So if you have now, let's come now at the anode, at the cathode, both, right, that one, both sodium ion and hydrogen ion will migrate to the cathode because they are positively charged. I repeat, both sodium ion and hydrogen ion will migrate to the cathode. But not all of them will be discharged. Instead, hydrogen ions will be discharged in preference to sodium ions. I hope you know the reason. The reason is hydrogen is below sodium in electrochemical cell. Hydrogen ions are below sodium ions in electrochemical cell as shown on the blackboard. And that means hydrogen ions requires less energy to be discharged. So the hydrogen ions instead will be discharged to form hydrogen gas. They will be discharged to form hydrogen gas. And when they form hydrogen gas, when you balance by gaining electron, and this is 2 and this is 2, the hydrogen ions will be discharged, and when they do so, they gain electrons to form. They discharge and form hydrogen atoms. Those atoms combine. The hydrogen atoms combine to form hydrogen gas. And again at the anode, we shall see bubbles. Bubbles of colorless gas. If you want to test it, it is hydrogen. How do you test for hydrogen? When you want to test that is hydrogen being produced, you collect the gas in a test tube. Then you test the gas using a burning spleen. It forms a pop. It explodes with pop sound. Any gas that explodes with pop sound, when a burning spleen is lowered in a test tube or a gas jar where it is, then that gas is confirmed to be hydrogen. In the same way, to confirm oxygen, that is the one which has been produced at the anode, then this time you don't use a glowing spleen. Don't mistake those two. Glowing spleen is for hydrogen. No, glowing spleen is for oxygen. So oxygen relights a glowing spleen. When a glowing spleen is lowered in a gas jar containing oxygen, then that glowing spleen, it relights, confirming that the gas within the test tube is oxygen. Then for hydrogen, you test using a burning spleen. For hydrogen, you test using a burning spleen. And when you lower a burning spleen in a gas jar containing hydrogen, it explodes with pop sound. So, what happens at the pH now? What happens at the pH of the solution? Here we said due to withdrawal of hydroxyl ions, not withdrawal, discharge of hydroxyl ions, the pH of solution decreases. It becomes more hydrogen ions increases. Now, what happens here? What happens here? Now, the sodium ions which have not discharged, the sodium ions which have not discharged react with the incoming hydroxyl ions because you have water. Let me show you this one. You have water everywhere at the anode and you have hydrogen plus hydroxyl ions because that is around there. The water around the cathode ionizes to form hydrogen ions and hydroxyl ions. Then we have sodium ions all going there. Now, when the hydrogen ions withdrew, they are discharged. It means the remaining hydroxyl ions combines with sodium ions to form sodium hydroxide, implying that the pH at the anode becomes more alkaline. The pH at the anode, no, the solution at the anode becomes more alkaline and therefore its pH increases. That is what you need to note. And the increase in pH is due to formation of sodium hydroxide. There is formation of sodium hydroxide at the cathode, which increases the pH. And there is a decrease at the cathode. So that is electrolysis of sodium hydroxide, and we are considering the position of iron in electrochemical cell. The position of the iron in electrochemical cell. Maybe we can look at also electrolysis of sulfuric acid. Electrolysis of sulfuric acid, dilute. And this one is the same as electrolysis of water. Electrolysis of water. Electrolysis of water, even sodium hydroxide. This sulfuric acid, when you electrolyze, practically, we tried it the other time when we are beginning our lessons, the electrolysis, and I want you, the diagram we drew, we connected, this is a test tube, and this one was our electrode, and this one was our, if you remember, then this one was another. I want you to remember that. We connected this one. We connected this one. And we connected to a clip. Then we added then we collected the gas. We collected the gas. We collected the gas. This is the anode, which is positive. Then this is the cathode, which is negative. This is the cathode, which is negative. And this is the gas, how we obtained. I will remind you why it was practical. That's how we connected those two when we carried out electrolysis of sulfuric acid or sodium hydroxide. And we want now to look at the theory of why it was the way it is. Remember, this is the gas. We said, let's call this one gas Y. Then this one is gas X. Hope you still remember. Now, we said sulfuric acid, we have sulfuric acid being a strong electrolyte. It will completely ionize to form two hydrogen ions plus sulfate. Remember, sulfuric acid, by the way, it is also covalent electrolyte. Sulfuric acid is a covalent electrolyte. What do I mean? We said covalent electrolyte are those which do not conduct electricity in pure form. But when dissolved in water, the water enhances their ionization, producing ions. So sulfuric acid is one of nitric acid, especially sulfuric acid is one of covalent electrolyte. So there is also water. Water, when you pass electricity, it just, this one completely ionizes. It partially ionizes to form hydrogen ions and hydroxyl ions. This time at the cathode, we don't have any problem. At the cathode, we don't have any problem. Ask me why, or I ask you why. Why? It's because we have only one positively charged ion, which is hydrogen. And obviously, hydrogen will be discharged. There is no selection. There is no selection of ions because it is hydrogen. So at the cathode, the hydrogen ions, they are discharged by gaining electron to form what? Hydrogen gas. So we shall see bubbles of hydrogen gas. We shall see bubbles of hydrogen gas. And when we balance, this is 2 and this is 2. Now when it comes to anode, okay, what happens to the pH? pH here. The withdrawal of hydrogen ions, leaves the OH. And the presence of excess OH increases the pH. So here, the pH increases. The pH increases. But doesn't mean that solution becomes alkaline. No. It cannot increase beyond. It just increases. See, the solution is sulfuric acid. So the pH cannot go above 5. But can move from 1 to 1.5. Now, at the anode now, that is why we have problem, because at the anode, I want you to write again, both sulfate ion and hydroxyl ion, hydroxide ion or hydroxyl ion, migrate to the anode because they are negatively charged. They are all attracted to the anode. But they cannot be discharged at the same time. That's where selective discharge of ions have to come in. So in this case, one which requires low energy, you cannot accept someone who demands a lot when there is someone who demands less. So even in the chemistry here, that's how it is. The one which requires less energy, it is the one the electrode can afford. And therefore the other one who is demanding a lot, then should go and check somewhere. Electrodes are not good at giving anyhow. So they prefer someone who requires less energy. So when we go to our electrochemical series, we have sulfate and hydroxyl. There is that wide difference in energy required to discharge. So it implies that the hydroxyl ion requires less energy to be discharged. In fact, very, very less energy to be discharged because it is below sulfate in electrochemical series. So when the two migrate to the anode, the hydroxyl ion, like that one, the hydroxyl ion will be preferably discharged. I repeat, both sulfate and hydroxyl will migrate to the anode. But hydroxyl ions will be preferably discharged. And the reason is they are below sulfate in electrochemical series and therefore requires less energy. And we have seen, I want you to master this one, whenever hydroxyl ions are discharged, they decompose to form water and oxygen as one equation. If they ask you to explain, that's when you go in details. But if they say ionic equation, now when these hydroxyl ions are discharged, when they are discharged, we say they decompose to form water plus oxygen, and they do so by losing an electron. Once again, we said when you are balancing, this is even, this is odd, we have to make this one odd, and by doing so, there are 4 hydrogen ions. These 4 hydrogen ions will cause the electron to become what? 4, and still we shall see bubbles of careless gas. I want to remind you that all solutions, all dilute solutions containing above ions will produce hydrogen at the cathode. All solutions, all dilute, if it is not molten, all dilute solution containing all above ions will produce hydrogen ions will produce hydrogen gas at the anode. Because hydrogen will be preferably discharged, since it is below all of them in electrochemical series, except if there is copper. If there is copper, then there is no way. If there is copper, then there is no way. So again, the test is the same. The pH here, now here it is hydroxyl ions which are being discharged, which means the hydrogen ions, excess hydrogen ions remaining, combines with what? Combines with sulfate ions, which have failed to discharge to form sulfuric acid. So sulfuric acid will decrease the acidity of solution. So whereas the acidity of solution increases at the cathode, it decreases at the anode. And the decrease is due to formation of sulfuric acid, which is reversed the other way round. Here at the anode, at the cathode, the pH increases because of formation of sodium hydroxide. And here at the anode, the pH decreases because of the formation of sulfuric acid. So that is one. Now, the one which now we come back to our diagram, which gas is hydrogen? Automatically, it is the hydrogen. This is positive. Sorry, this is short. This is negative. So the gas is, this gas is oxygen. I think it is the other way around. Now, even if I want to get this one without putting the cell, this is DC supply. Now, if the diagram is drawn like this one, according to information you have been given, how do you tell which gas? Now, before that one, let's first note. To deposit 1 mole of, to liberate 1 mole of hydrogen, we require 2 moles of electricity. To liberate 1 mole of hydrogen, we require 2 moles of electricity. Where am I getting electricity? 1 electron is equivalent to 1 mole of electricity. Then, to liberate 1 mole of oxygen, we require 4 moles of electricity. 4 moles. Here we require 2 moles. So, which means by the time you liberate 1 mole of oxygen, you would have produced 2 moles of hydrogen. By the time you liberate 1 mole of oxygen, you would have liberated 2 moles of oxygen, 2 moles of hydrogen. You will have liberated 2 moles of hydrogen. Even in this sodium hydroxide, it is the same. Don't say it is only for sulfuric acid, even for sodium hydroxide. So in any electrolysis containing water, and produces hydrogen at the cathode and oxygen at the anode, we have 2 hydrogen ions plus 2 electrons to form what? To form hydrogen gas. Then we have 4 moles of hydroxyl decomposing to form 2 moles of water, 1 mole of oxygen, and 4 electrons. So for every 1 mole of oxygen, there are 4 moles of electricity. Whereas for 1 mole of hydrogen, there are 2 moles of electricity. Meaning that for 1 mole of oxygen, we would have produced 2 moles of hydrogen. For every 1 mole of hydrogen, for every 1 mole of hydrogen, there are 2 moles. For every 1 mole of oxygen, there are 2 moles of hydrogen produced. And we can show it, maybe I can slightly show it in this way. Let's add. When we add, we multiply here by 2 in order to remove what? The electrons. Therefore, we have 4 hydrogen ions plus 4 hydroxyl ions. We multiply here by 2 to make this electron 4, to give 2 moles of hydrogen gas, 2 moles of water, and 1 mole of oxygen. Yes. For 2 moles of hydrogen. For 2 moles of hydrogen produced, there is 1 mole of oxygen. For 2 moles of hydrogen produced, there is 1 mole of oxygen. So when we come, this gas Y is hydrogen. Gas Y is hydrogen, and gas X is oxygen. And should know the reason. Because during electrolysis of any dilute solution, hydrogen produced is twice oxygen. Hydrogen produced is twice oxygen. So now in this case, it means this one, if we come now to complete our diagram, it means hydrogen is produced at the cathode, which is supposed to be very small. So this is positive and this is negative. This is negative. And the flow of electrons will move from this direction. And the current, this is the flow of electrons. And this is the flow of current. That is flow of current. That is flow of current. Because current moves from positive, the electron moves from negative. So that's how you can identify these gases, because the hydrogen produced is always twice that one of oxygen. In any electrolysis which involves the formation of oxygen at the anode and hydrogen at the cathode. Now, we have said the electrolysis of those dilute solution like sulfuric acid is equivalent to electrolysis of water. The electrolysis of sodium hydroxide, the electrolysis of sulfuric acid is equivalent to electrolysis of water. Even if it means hydrochloric acid, nitric acid, potassium hydroxide will produce the same values. So, I want you to ask this question. From your observations, why do you think electrolysis of sulfuric acid is equivalent to electrolysis of water? All of you, your answers seem to be correct, but maybe I can make conclusion. When you electrolyze sulfuric acid, the hydrogen produced and the oxygen and the ratio of 2 to 1. The hydrogen, the more ratio of hydrogen to oxygen is 2 to 1. For every mole of 2 hydrogen, for every 2 moles of hydrogen produced, there is 1 mole according to this one, which is equivalent to electrolysis of water. Which is equivalent to electrolysis of water, since the more the hydrogen and oxygen combined in the ratio of 2 to 1. to form water. I don't know whether it is clear. Yes, I repeat. When you electrolyze sulfuric acid, the ratio of hydrogen to oxygen produced is 2:1, which is equivalent to the moles of hydrogen atoms and oxygen atoms in water. 2 moles of hydrogen combines to form 1 mole of hydrogen and water. So which means when you decompose water, by electrolysis, you get hydrogen gas and oxygen gas. Because you cannot get atoms. Hydrogen and oxygen exist as the atomic. They cannot exist in the form of atoms. So, but when you balance this one, you put here 2, you put here 2, which is the moles of hydrogen, which is 2:1, and is equivalent to moles of hydrogen and oxygen produced when you electrolyze dilute sulfuric acid. So that is one of the factors which determines selective discharge of ions during electrolysis, and so on. You can use any type of electrolysis, then you will get that one. Then the other one is, the other factor is concentration. The other factor is concentration of ions in solution. Concentration of ions in solution. Concentration of ions in solution. In this case, we can give an example. We can give an example of sodium dilute, sodium chloride. Then we electrolyze concentrated sodium chloride. In both cases, the ions present are sodium ion, hydroxide ion, chloride ion, then hydrogen ion from water. In the same way, we have sodium ion, hydrogen ion, chloride ion, and hydroxyl ion. These ones are from water, and these ones are from sodium chloride. These ones are from water, and these ones are from sodium chloride. We have all those ions. Now, for dilute solution, we said for that solution, we consider selective discharge of ions for dilute solution. So at the anode, what happens there? Anode is positive. So what happens is both hydroxyl ions and chloride ions will migrate to the anode. But the solution being dilute, the hydroxyl ions will be preferably discharged. I repeat, both chloride ions and hydroxyl ions will migrate to the anode. But hydroxyl ions will be preferably discharged because they are below chloride ions in electrochemical series, meaning they require less energy to be discharged. And in this case, we remind ourselves that it is for hydroxyl and there is no balancing. Now this time you should have known what is supposed to be the product. To decompose to form water plus oxygen plus 4 electrons. So you will see bubbles of colorless gas. Then at the cathode, both sodium ion and hydrogen ion will migrate will migrate. And when they migrate, hydrogen ion will be preferably discharged. Those two have abnormal difference in the energy required to discharge. So they will migrate, but hydrogen ions will be preferably discharged. And therefore, we shall see bubbles of careless gas due to discharge of hydrogen gas. So once again, the products are hydrogen and oxygen. But when it comes to here, there is concentration. If you have ever watched these athletics people in the same group try to protect. When you are in numbers, the way you move, the way you want to take off, unless if you want to take off at high speed, then you move out of the big number. But the moment you still run in a big number, you cannot be able to run very fast. So in even the ions, those which are highly concentrated, they prevent the other few ones to move out of the solution. So for instance, at the anode, we have chloride ion and hydroxyl ion moving. But this time, the chloride ions are present in high concentration. The chloride ions are present in high concentration. So they will block the hydrogen ions from moving towards the cathode. So when we are present in big number, we outweighs you even if you have power. It's like saying that you have enough power to fight. But if you are fighting one person, you are very strong. But if you are fighting 20 people whose power is less than yours, still you cannot defeat them. Because when you add up, they might exceed your power. So the chloride ions are present in high concentration. So they will prevent the hydrogen, they will repel hydrogen ions from being discharged. So in this case, the chloride ions will be preferably discharged and form chlorine gas plus 2 electrons. So the chloride ions now, in this case, will be preferably discharged. So, in other words, when the ions are present in high concentration, when you have different ions in solution, those which are present in high concentration are preferably discharged. For today, this is where we have stopped. We are remaining with one factor which I can give you an assignment, the nature of electrode. And go and read on electrolysis of copper 2 sulfate using copper electrodes and graphite electrodes. Go and read on those two, so that when we come back, at least you have an idea. Go and read assignment, go and read on electrolysis of copper 2 sulfate, 1 using graphite electrodes and 2 using copper electrodes. Stay tuned on UBC, our public broadcaster, who have advised
Up next on UBC, brought to you by
Airtel TV, a world of entertainment on your phone.
No ad interruptions.
No subscription fees. Download the app for free now from Google Play and App Store. Terms and conditions apply.
The Ministry of Health informs the general public that we have registered some deaths in Uganda due to COVID-19. This is a reminder that COVID-19 is real, deadly, and we are all at risk. Let us be more vigilant to prevent the further spread of the disease in our communities. As responsible citizens, ensure that you regularly wash your hands with soap and running water, or use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Properly wear a face mask covering your mouth, nose and chin while in public. Maintain a social distance of at least 2 meters between yourself and another person. Avoid anyone with a cold or flu-like symptoms. Cover your nose and mouth when sneezing and coughing. Avoid touching your eyes, nose and mouth with unwashed hands. Be vigilant. Stay safe. This message is from the Ministry of Health.
It is 1 p.m. here in the studios of UBC TV. Hello there and welcome from me, Rukidi Edward Kijanangoma, to UBC Lunchtime News this Tuesday, the first day of September 2020. We are glad that you've made UBC TV your channel of choice, and let's bite into this bulletin. Nauru Grade 1 Court, presided over by Magistrate Patricia Amoko, is expected any moment from now to pronounce a sentence to a one, Shimanya Simon, who pleaded guilty for killing his wife Viola Kakai in Bumbu Chitezi in Wakiso district. Simon Shimanya pleaded guilty over killing his wife Viola Kakai during a fight after he allegedly found her cheating on him with a one Sebuf Robert at his residence in Chitezi. On his plea of guilty, prosecution led by counsel Timothy Ameriti prayed to court to give Simon Shimanya a deterrent sentence to serve as an example to other perpetrators. In the last court sitting, the convict Shimanya prayed to court for a lenient sentence since he is a first-time offender and the sole breadwinner for his 3 children. According to prosecution, Simon Samanya killed his wife Viola Kakai in a fight using an axe which left her nursing wounds on the head. Viola Kakai was working as a midwife at International Hospital Kampala and was killed on the 1st of August 2020. Now, should court decline to reduce on the sentence, Simon Shimanya will be imprisoned to life. To other news now, a new force commander of the African Union mission in Somalia has officially assumed office at a formal ceremony held at the force headquarters in Mogadishu. The ceremony was presided over by Ambassador Francisco Ketano Madera, the special representative of the chairperson of the African Union Commission for Somalia. Lieutenant General Diomede Ndegea from Burundi took over the reins as AMISOM Force Commander from Lieutenant General Tigabu Yilma of Ethiopia, who served in that capacity since January 2019. The ceremony included a colorful military parade mounted by AMISOM Sector 1 forces from Uganda and witnessed by senior AMISOM commanders. In his remarks, Ambassador Madera welcomed General Ndegea and urged him to build on the rich tradition of his predecessors to enable the mission achieve its mandate. Take a watch.
You are inheriting a tradition of heroism, a tradition of dedication, a tradition of self-giving. We want to see this tradition continued and strengthened. Burundi has been a very, very heroic country from the inception, since 2007. Burundi was pivotal, side by side with Uganda, in the liberation of Mogadishu and in chasing Al-Shabaab from the city. You are in the lead. You have to lead this. You have to lead us to achieve our mandate in the military component.
Task ahead of me is not easy, but with your support and the wise leadership and a helping hand and support from all AMISOM personnel, civilian, military, and the police component, as well as our international partners, I am certain if you stand and support me as you kindly supported my predecessor, Lieutenant General Tigabo Yilima, we will jointly take the mission forward and achieve our mandate.
Change of guard in Somalia there. Now, the chairman of North Indian Cultural Association of Uganda, Ram Gulshan, says the increasing cases of eye-related diseases among vulnerable public has prompted the Indian community in Uganda to meet costs for eye surgeries of those who cannot afford. Now, over 3,000 surgeries have so far been done since 2016 and have pledged to continue with the initiative through free medical camps across the country.
Since inception of NICA, we are thinking to start some serious activity. In this, we have started a project called Your Vision, Our Mission, in which we are organizing free eye camps. How this started? This is basically an initiative of like-minded Indians living in Uganda who are willing to give back society by helping the underprivileged community members in Uganda. Particularly those who are suffering from the eye diseases and impaired eyesight. And they cannot afford the medical attention or even buy the spectacles. For this reason, NICA has started the project called Your Vision, Our Mission. We are organizing free eye medical camps in slum areas basically, and some weaker section areas around the Kampala and across the country also. These camps are held with the conjunction of Ministry of Health, Mulago Referral Hospitals, Regional Referral Hospitals, Samta Foundation and Dr. Agrawal Eye Hospital. They have the competent doctor and specialist. They are working with us. The objective of these camps is majorly to find out, to identify the major cause of severe visual impairment and blindness among the children and the adults in the society and offer them treatment accordingly. Furthermore, we would like to create awareness in the society about the preventive measures to be taken to reduce the risk of the eye diseases. The most notable feature of the camps include the testing, scanning, and giving the distribution of optical medicines and spectacles to the unprivileged local community members. In addition, we are also providing the medical surgeries if it is required, like cataract, to those people who are verged on the blindness.
Very good initiative there by the Indian community in Uganda, because there are so many people within the country who have got eye-related defects. To Kanungu now, where Kanungu is one of the districts in the country with a strong economic base but a waning political underneath. The district that borders Windy Penetrable National Park, Queen Elizabeth National Park and Lake Edward is also a leading tea and coffee growing area. However, the area's political prowess has not been as vibrant as the economic transformation, mainly after the non-political vibrants decided to lie low. Let's get more in this report.
Services, we are putting up a health center through here, Matanda, and very many other activities. But the security...
Nobody wants to belong to an area that is not known for anything Kanungu politicians are back onto the drawing board to ignite the political flame that until a few years ago shone across all the ridges and valleys.
Changes. My target, I am mobilizing for His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni for 2021.
Though well endowed with beautiful scenery, bountiful harvests, a fairly good road network, livestock and other natural gifts, Kanungu is now lacking in political fire. This is after the renowned political firebrands in Kanungu decided to go slow on elective politics.
And we have seen what he has done in these 30 years, because everybody can see what he has done, and we expecting him to do more in the future for this country.
It is for this reason that residents are now endeavoring to revive the political enthusiasm in them.
All the differences that happen, we say how to reconcile each other and so become one. And thirdly, to get a team which will keep on taking interests of NRM forward. My people in Kanungu, the majority are behind that, and they've been supporting NRM from the time it started.
The area's hope is now hinged on the Yellow Brigade that is now traversing the district, arousing the political spirit, mainly the love for the national resistance movement.
For Kanungu, for the whole Uganda even, to support His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni for the coming election, because as in Kanungu we have already mobilized the people to support, but the whole country we appeal at least to support His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni for this coming election.
The National Resistance Movement Party had an average performance in the area in 2016, a situation that has endeared some opinion leaders in the area to reinforce their mobilization strategy.
Let's now go for a very short break, but we'll be returning to give you what's happening in the world of business. Stay with us.
There's no more stress. The condition continues to get better every morning. For us who used to eat one meal each day, we now have extra for sale. Thank you for giving us seeds. Now we can drink milk and eat eggs. We used to wake up scared and frightened, but now security is guaranteed. Children are immunized against killer diseases. Many roads are being constructed. Factories, communication, human rights have all increased. So many people have learned how to read and write. You have put a smile in every home around the country. We are with you all the way. We are with you all the time. We are with you in every situation, because we can see where we are going.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field could not be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite show.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
Keep your loved ones connected with Airtel voice bundles as they stay home safe. You can now gift any of the Airtel voice bundles to your loved ones free of charge. Yes, gifting of voice bundles is absolutely free of charge. All you have to do is dial *100*2*6#. Select from daily, weekly, monthly, Chavise, Zaweze, or even night bundles. Enter number you are gifting, select pay using airtime or Airtel Money to complete transaction. Gift any Airtel voice bundle and keep your loved ones connected at no cost. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Uganda! Let's welcome the Pioneer Exception Awards 2020, the only awards of service that recognize and appreciate unsung heroes that have lived selflessly, given generously, impacted Uganda enormously, and left footprints in education, healthcare, environment protection, student research, socio-economic transformation, aid, development, public safety, peace, security, and service delivery in all its various forms. Award categories like Teacher of the Year, Physician of the Year, Environment Protection Award, Servant of the Year, Special Award, Personality of the Year, Woman of the Decade Award, Man of the Decade Award, Visionary Award, Lifetime Achievement Award, and the Peace Prize. Presented by Exceptional Diverse Women Foundation. Come this November 2020 at Kampala Serena Hotel. For inquiries, call 256-752-071-543 or 256-782-071-543. Thank you for serving Uganda.
My first 4G smartphone from Airtel is back. It's bigger, better, and comes with 5 GB free data per month for 3 months. At only 200,000 Uganda shillings, enjoy fantastic features on the phone, like the face unlock feature, long battery life. Mwana, ka volume keko. Live your life in 4G with my first 4G smartphone at only 200,000 Uganda shillings and get free 5 GB data every month for 3 months. Visit the nearest Airtel shop, dial *175*9# to enjoy free data. Airtel, the smartphone network.
I really want to appreciate our customers. They have supported us as we opened all the 8 routes. And it's fitting that now, as we come to this point, we echo a voice of gratitude to all of them. We had a good run for the past 6-7 months. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we are grounded on the 22nd of March.
We had to ground all of our airplanes, and when you ground aircraft, storage maintenance is required so that when you are required to return the aircraft into service again, the aircraft would not have deteriorated due to non-usage, due to weather and things like that. Every 7 days we open up the aircraft, run the engines, do system checks to make sure that everything is operational. If there is any defect, it's cleared, ready for return of the aircraft to service when time comes.
There are new measures that we are going to take when we start to fly. First of all, there will be standards of health, which means disinfecting the aircraft before it flies and after it comes back. Before every flight, we are supposed to do sanitization, and our pilots, both our pilots and flight attendants and everybody who works around it, they have got to have protective equipment. We are looking forward to expanding the network to include the additional 10 routes we are targeting for the regional operation. In relation to international operations, we are still targeting that we will receive the aircraft in the last quarter, at least by December 2020, so that early in the new year we can launch our operations. We are targeting mainly 3 connections to overseas markets, which is Dubai, London, as well as the Chinese market in Guangzhou.
17 minutes after 1 in the studios of UBC TV. Welcome back to this lunchtime bulletin here on UBC TV. My name is Edward Rukidi Kijana Ngoma, and we are glad you are still with us. Let's have a look now at what's happening in the world of business. Government has renovated roads leading to Kidepo Valley National Park as one of its pledges of the 2016-2021 NRM Manifesto. Richard Mohabwe, the chief warden Kidepo Valley Conservation Area, says access to tourism facilities has been made easy, although they have been affected by the COVID-19 lockdown. Ivan Kahwa reports.
Yes. Kidepo Valley National Park, located in Karamoja sub-region, northeast of Uganda, is habitat to the largest herds of elephants in Africa. The 1,442 square kilometer park is entirely savanna grassland with a variety of animal family species. Karenga, a newly created district carved from Kabong, is the gateway into Kidepo Valley National Park. Standard operation procedures remain emphasized while local visitors access the park, though the number has sharply reduced.
You can see from 3,000 visitors in January, March, to only 10 visitors in April, June. That is a tremendous nosedive from a big visitation to almost zero.
Revenue generated from visitors clears salary, medical care for rangers, veterinary intervention and equipment.
But since this pandemic struck us, we have now almost no revenue to plow into conservation. So this is the time when we expect government to come in a big way to our rescue.
Government, on the other hand, has upgraded roads with first-class maram, leading to various tourism facilities in terms of accommodation.
Yeah, apparently this is just the start, and we hope that the government could come in and tarmac this road, such that really we don't think of it getting back to those states sometimes back. But for now, we also have the road gangs that are helping us to slash. They also bury other pots in case it develops. That's why you can see the side of the road are being slashed.
Accessing the park has its challenges too. Some roads are terrible, which affects the purpose of enjoying the beautiful sceneries with ease.
We maintain our roads, so we are just now waiting. It is not good to do roads when it is so wet, but when it starts getting dry, then we start swing into action and ensure that our trucks, tourism trucks and roads are motorable.
Locals are sensitized on animal behaviors in order to live in harmony, though armed invasions are registered at the park.
So the Ranger Force and the UPDF have been able to contain those incursions of poachers who come from South Sudan. And no wonder our borders are now sealed.
Rangers have been provided with shelter as they closely monitor the Kidepo Conservation Area. Ivan Kahwa, UBC News in Karamoja sub-region.
World news, and we go to Kenya, where President Uhuru Kenyatta has directed the Ministry of Health to create a digital procurement system within the next 30 days and make public all tenders awarded by the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority that is now on the port of the COVID-19 billions. The Kenyan head of state says the move is aimed at restoring public faith in the authority in the wake of allegations of theft of funds meant to fight the coronavirus pandemic. According to Kenyatta, the digital platform should include all details on procurement, including the value of tenders, a process of evaluation, and the tender awardees. The directive comes days after the Kenyan head of state issued yet another directive calling for a thorough probe into alleged theft of COVID-19 funds that created a nation outcry. Kenyatta was speaking when he closed a one-day virtual conference organized by the Council of Governors, where he called for the utilization of knowledge gained from the global and national response to COVID-19 in the rollout of universal health coverage in the country. The conference resolved to, among others, institutionalize Kenya's COVID-19 response in readiness for future pandemics. Let's hear the President.
Pre-mortem analysis will help us chart the path to sustainable health provisioning for all. Using this model, the conference should therefore give us counsel on how to promote preventative medicine over symptomatic care. It should guide us on how to use the lessons learned from the COVID-19 experience in order to anchor the full national rollout of the universal health coverage, one of the pillars of my administration's agenda for the nation. The other issue that I think has come out very strongly in this conference is the need for us to once again refocus on mental health care. We have seen that this is becoming an increasing problem, as I have mentioned in the past, an increasing problem in our country, amongst our people, especially our young people. There is really a need for us to refocus our efforts and redouble the work that we're doing to help and to work with the mental health of our people. And towards this end, I really want to say that it is not just the relatives or the health workers, but it is the population at large. I mean, there has been a huge impact as a result of the lockdown that we have had on our young people who have felt restrained and constrained from the liberties that they know. And this has seriously affected the health and well-being of our young people. So I think that there is need for this, and there is need for a focus on this. And towards that end, without even waiting for the national conference, I do hereby direct the Ministry of Health to begin working on an active plan that they can present to us when we have our national conference on how we are going to deal with the issue of the mental health and mental well-being of our people.
Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta ending that report there. And that brings us to the end of lunchtime news today, this first day of September 2020. My name is Rukidi Edward Kijanangoma. Thank you so much for having watched, and catch you tomorrow.
Your loved ones connected with Airtel voice bundles as they stay home safe. You can now gift any of the Airtel voice bundles to your loved ones free of charge. Yes, gifting of voice bundles is absolutely free of charge. All you have to do is dial *100*2*6#. Select from daily, weekly, monthly, Chavise, Zaweze, or even night bundles. Enter number you are gifting, select pay using airtime or Airtel Money to complete transaction. Gift any Airtel voice bundle and keep your loved ones connected at no cost. Airtel, the smartphone network.
So there are many things we have done which touch, and really most of these are for the ordinary people.
Unemployment. For example, poverty. For example, corruption.
Those are the tangible kind of things people would want Parliament to address.
I do not see a member of Parliament getting involved in corruption unless you are talking about Parliament as an institution.
Who should we hold accountable for that?
I think that a member should be able to see what is in the public interest in this issue.
The birth of Uganda Prison Service dates as far back as 1896. A Bear Company of Captain Rugadi established a King's African Rifle. In 1918, prisons was carved out as an independent department of police managed by the Deputy Inspector General of Police. The first commissioner was called Robertson, and the last white commissioner was called Cameron. And we realize it was not until 1964 that the first black commissioner of prisons was appointed by the names of Fabian Luke Okware.
A prisoner has a right, and that is when we can be able to treat our citizens as human beings.
When we have 53% of remand in prisons, it means we are having the wrong people. We should be having convicts, not remands. But now we have more remands than convicts.
Osobola okubanga wali owulidde ku ky'okwewaawo ebbanga. Kino kitegeeza kulekawo ekifuba kiramba okuva ku bantu abakuliraanye okukendeeza ku nsaasaanya y'akawuka ka korona. Naye nga lwaki kyetaagisa? Ewatali kwewaawo ebbanga, omuntu alina akawuka asobola okusaasaanya ku bantu abalala 2 oba 3. Ate ne bano ne bakongerayo ku bantu abalala 2 oba 3. Era na bano ne bakongerayo ku bantu abalala 2 oba 3. Bwe batyo, bwe batyo. Mu mwezi akawuka kasobola okuva ku muntu omu ne katuuka ku bantu 406. Wabula singa buli muntu asala ku bantu basinkana kimu kyakubiri, omuwendo gw'abafuna akawuka gusalika mu bunnambiro. Buli muntu alina akawuka asobola okusiiga omuntu omu oba 2. Ate na bano ne basiiga omuntu omu oba 2. Kino kitegeeza nti obulwadde bujja kusaasaana katono. Nga mu mwezi omulamba akawuka kasaasaana okuva ku muntu omu okutuuka 15. Ago ge maanyi g'okwewaawo ebbanga. Lekawo ekifuba kiramba okuva ku buli muntu akuliraanye okendeeze ensaasaana y'akawuka, otaasa obulamu. Bw'okola bw'otyo ojja kwetaasa, otaasa abantu bo, ate n'eggwanga lyo. Obubaka buno bukutuusibwako Ministry y'ebyobulamu.
Dear children, this is Auntie Jovita, your friend, your mentor, and your mother. During this lockdown, many people have come up with different projects that have kept them busy, and this could be one of the projects you do for yourselves. You can have rabbits, rare chicken, and by the end of the lockdown, you have the project of your own under your name. You could ask for sponsorship or for help from money, from daddy, from your guardian, or even your savings, because you don't need a lot to start such a project. And you start small. You don't have to have so many things. You start with a cock and a hen. They were just 2, now they have 10 chicks. There were 2 rabbits, now there are 6 rabbits. And they are beautiful things to own. You need to enjoy your lockdown so that you have a story to tell at the end of the day. Stay safe, stay home, and be good children.
Contact tracing is one of the critical surveillance strategies for controlling the spread of COVID-19. It is a process of monitoring persons who have been exposed to another person infected with COVID-19. This involves identification, listing and follow-up of persons who came into contact with an infected person and evacuating them. KCCA formed a COVID-19 response hub whose purpose was to do contact tracing, evacuate the suspected persons and prompt isolation of new cases. These are their stories.
Charles Kennedy is my name, and I'm a medical laboratory technologist working in Kawempe Division under KCCA. And during this COVID, I've been working as the division surveillance focal person for Kawempe Division. Before COVID, I was, as I told you, that I'm a laboratory professional, where we do a lot of work in terms of diagnostics. In simple terms, you have had, like when you are sick, you go to the hospital, the doctor will recommend definitely for laboratory tests. I did to find out what is happening, what could be the cause of the disease. And we, as the laboratorians, we are at that stage where we are the ones who identify the cause of a disease, so that the doctors, the clinicians, are able to, based on our results, then to determine how to manage a patient. And that's one of the things we do. And of course, among other things, we also train other health workers who in the same profession. Myself, I'm also a senior trainer. I've trained so many people out there. You'll be surprised that almost every corner you go, I always find some of my trainees, and I'm proud of that. Of course, we do research, we participate in research. We have been in different research activities.